Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about in the next couple days and weeks different topics. And for you guys, at first you may say this is not going to make any sense. Why are we learning about this? Um, It'll all piece together in the end. And the reason we're going to learn about this is because this is the kind of stuff that they're also teaching in school, especially in colleges. But you ever hear the expression selective learning, selective teaching? What does that imply, selective teaching? Like if you're learning history and they teach you selective learning about history, what do you think that means?
Teaching you certain topics they want you to know.
Exactly. They're teaching you certain topics or ideas of that subject that they want you to know, while eliminating the other subjects from that they don't want you to learn. So in the process of learning, if you don't know the full story, then when you see, like when you watch these people, like you're seeing a lot of these videos with Charlie Kirk now lately. You brought it to my attention, Ange. But you see a lot of these videos with Charlie Kirk, and he's doing talks at colleges, or he's just sitting there at colleges, and college students who are supposed to be smart are coming up and asking asinine, stupid questions, and they're having dumb arguments because they were taught selective learning on certain topics. And when they start talking, they're not able to fight back with him because he says, what about this? What about this? What about this? And they go, I don't know what you're talking about, because they were only taught a piece of it. And because the rest of it was left out, their learning makes no sense in the overall picture of the world. And they're confused. So what we're going to do is we're not going to do selective learning. We're going to go over certain topics that they go over in college and in high school, and we're going to go over the full story, and we're going to figure it out. And by the way, too, don't even take my word for it. Like what I always do is when I'm watching the news or I'm watching something, I have a notepad nearby. And if I hear a word or a phrase that I don't understand or I don't get, I write it down and I look it up myself. Or if I hear something that sounds unbelievable, I write it down and I research it for myself. That's what you're supposed to learn. Remember, that's what you're supposed to do. Remember how we talked about in the first day this year and the first day last year, we are learning how to learn, okay? Learning is not taking what the teacher says as 100% gospel truth and believing it. Learning is not taking what the priest in church says as 100% the gospel truth and believing it. Learning is not listening to what the doctor says and believing it, or what the judge says, or what the police say, or what the lawyers say and believe it. Learning is taking what they say, going home and researching it for yourself and finding out what the full truth is. Does that make sense? Okay, so you're with me so far. So what we're going to learn in the next few weeks is certain topics, the full story. Because if you have a piece of the story, you're going to argue with people and you're going to look like fools, like these guys on TV. They're arguing. So we're going to start with this. Okay, so this is going to be the first topic we're going to talk about, and this is going to piece into several other topics that we're going to also talk into. But if you don't know what this means, then the others aren't going to make any sense. What's that word? Reparations. What does that mean?
It's price you have to pay after a war. Like if you cause you have to pay reparations too. It's like paying back after a war happens.
That's what it is. That's one part of it. When you're in a war and you lose the war, the losing party of the who was in the war, many times, especially if the war was all their fault, they have to pay back the winning, or reparations. They have to repay the winning team back for the damages they caused for the war. That's part of reparations. What does reparations mean with involving, when they talk about it, with slavery? Because that's a big thing they'll teach in school, reparations, because of slavery. You ever hear that expression based on slavery? Okay. A lot of almost every school, remember, schools are run by the Rockefeller Foundation. So Rockefeller Foundation dictates what all the public schools are supposed to be teaching. Rockefeller Foundation also dictates what all the colleges are supposed to be teaching. So they're all, so a lot of the schools are teaching reparations. And what that means is they're teaching that all the black people in the United States today should receive reparations for damages that were caused during slavery in the early United States. Okay, does that make sense? Now, what do they want in reparations? A lot of them are saying they want a minimum of $350,000 cash. A lot of them are saying that white people should just pay for their homes, their houses, their cars, and give it to white people, and give it to black people. The white people should just pay for their home and then give it to a black person for reparations for slavery. Now, would that be fair to us? Why? Did we ever own slaves? Did our parents ever own slaves? Did our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents ever own slaves? No. Why would that be fair to us? Now, what they're saying is it doesn't matter. If your skin color is white, you owe the black people reparations. And you have to pay huge amounts of money. What's our nationality? We're Filipino and we're Palestinian. Filipinos, we don't need that right now. Filipinos were slaves to the Spaniards hundreds of years ago. Palestinians were slaves to the Muslims hundreds of years ago, and even till today. So technically, we come from the family of slaves, not slave owners, correct? So do we owe black people anything? Nothing. Now, on the other hand, there are a lot of black people in the United States who are lawyers, doctors, entertainers, and even business owners or workers in a factory. Were they ever slaves? No. Were their parents ever slaves? No. Were their grandparents ever slaves? No. Does that make sense? Why would white people owe black people reparations if white people were never slave owners and the black people were never slaves? That's the big question. That's the question a lot of people refuse to answer. That's what we're going to talk about today. They say it should be based solely on the color of your skin. Now, again, we're Filipinos and Palestinians. Our history is of being slaves, not slave owners. There are many blacks, like from Jamaica, or from Dominican Republic, or from Egypt. Many of them, there is no history in their family of being slaves. So are they entitled to reparations just by coming to the United States and being black in their skin? No. So the big question comes up then, why would somebody demand reparations, huge amounts of money, white people to give up their houses, and they would do all this and insist on reparations? That's the big question. Why would someone insist on that happening? Think deep. Now remember, we do our detective thing on Friday because we're trying to decode a game to solve a crime, right? Now we're trying to decode the world to solve why are they doing this? Think, why would they be doing this? I'll give you a hint. Why would the triangle or evil people be pushing the idea of reparations? What is it doing? Huh? Exactly, honey. To divide everybody, to pit one group against another group so that they're always fighting each other. If everybody is always fighting, if blacks are always fighting with whites, they're too distracted to see the big picture of what really is going on. Does that make sense? And you can see, this side will get mad. We want reparations. This side will say, I wasn't ever a slave owner. And they'll fight viciously about it. And in the meantime, they're wasting all day fighting about this, talking about this, thinking about this. that they don't solve the big problem. And the big problem, which we'll get into in a little while, is that we are really, all of us are really slaves. All of us are really slaves to the triangle people. And they're laughing all the way to the bank, counting their money like crazy, while we're all fighting each other, while slave is fighting slave. And we'll explain that later, how we're all slaves later. But first, we're going to talk about this reparations, okay? All right, now, I'm going to show you a video here in a second, just to illustrate what I'm starting to talk about here. In the video, you're going to see several people, and then we're going to learn a little history of how slavery actually started. In the video, you're going to see a couple of famous people that have demanded their whole life for reparations for the black people. That these are triangle people stoking the fire of hate so everyone fights. One of the people in there, her name is Sunny Hostin. You ever hear of the TV show The View? The View. It's very popular on the liberal Democrat side. They watch it. They start a lot of fights about people, how black people are entitled. There should be no such thing as jails. There should be no such thing as prisons. We need to abolish the police. We need to give reparations. Black people need to get everything. White people need to give every, it's this whole, the show is just, if you watch it, it's infuriating. But the other side believes it 100% that should happen. Now, another important thing, so her name is Sunny Hostin, and she's a lawyer, and she says that she's black. You'll see in the video, she really is not black, but because her skin is dark, she calls herself black. And she demands reparations for herself and for black people because of the color of her skin, even though her family is not from Africa, okay? You'll also see in the videos a video about Kamala Harris, who was the vice president last term with Joe Biden and was almost president this time. She also calls herself black and says she's entitled to reparations and all her people are entitled to reparations. You're going to see in the video that not only was she not black, or she is not black, that her family were slave owners. So her family owned slaves, but she still thinks she's entitled to reparations because she's black. So that's a little weird thing. How can you be a slave owner and receive reparations for slavery just because of the color of your skin? See how it's confusing? How could you be the slave owner and still receive reparations? You were the owner, not the slave. But you'll see in the video she's not black and her family was slave owners. You'll also see in the video a lady named Angela Davis. Now, Angela Davis is black. Angela Davis, since Martin Luther King, since John F. Kennedy, since Vietnam War, has been fighting black causes her whole life. She's a Marxist, a communist. She's a troublemaker. She was actually arrested many years ago for, there was a case of murder where 3 young men killed some police officers or prison guards, and she supplied them with the guns that killed them. So she was arrested, but she's black. She's demanding reparations in massive forms of reparations for black people, okay? And she's black. But you find out in the video that she comes from a family of slave owners, a lot of families of slave owners. You'll also see in the video that her family actually came over to the colonies on the Mayflower. So what does that say? Alex, what does that say? If she came on the Mayflower, what does that say? Her family. They were one of the first people to the United States. They weren't dragged here from Africa to be slaves. They came here willingly on the Mayflower. Make sense? Okay. So we'll watch the video and we'll start with that.
Sunny Hostin, who I think is truly the nastiest woman on television and a genuine racist and not that bright, despite her law degree and everything else. She found out a little bit, you know these TV shows where they tell you a little bit about your family history and your ancestry? She found out some stuff about her ancestors that, well, take a look.
Wow, I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children. To know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Her genealogy test came back negative. Yeah, she's related to slaveholders. What are we gonna do?
Over here. Yes, they say he's black, but I got something weird. Let's go down. His dad, Oscar Joseph Harris. Oscar Joseph Harris. All right. Oscar Wild Brown Harris. All right. Jamaica. Joseph Alexander Harris, Christina Brown is the paternal grandfather of Kamala DeVell Harris. I'm sorry, but he kind of looks white. Son of Bang. Let's go to his dad. I don't know, man. That's a white dude. To me, it looks like a white dude. Alright. Then, let's go back. Who's his wife? Relationship with Christine Brown. Let's see who she is. Christina was born in 1801. She is one of the paternal great-grandparents of Kamala, Vice President. Most of what is known about her life comes from personal collections. He claimed that Christina, descendant of an Irish-born Hamilton, a sugar cane plantation owner and a slaveholder who died in 1843. Her grandson remembers Christina as being called Miss Chrissy, and that she was a mother of 8 children, the proprietor of a dry goods shop in Brownstown district, and also had a farm in Orange Hill. Christina's occupation listed on her children's birth records are laborer and seamstress. So Kamala's great-grandmother, or that would be what it was, right? Yeah, great-grandmother was a slaveholder. Weird.
Idea what you're looking at? That is a list of the passengers on the Mayflower.
No, I can't believe this. No, my ancestors did not come here on the Mayflower.
Your ancestors came on the Mayflower.
No.
You are descended
No.
from one of the 101 people who sailed on the Mayflower.
Oof. That's a little bit too much to deal with right now.
Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think that you may have descended from people who laid
Never.
the foundation
Never.
for this country?
Never.
Okay, quickly, any thoughts on those videos? Reason I showed you those videos is because what I said in the beginning of this is when you hear something that sounds weird, what do? Do you believe it? Or do you look it up? Yeah, research it, look it up for yourself. Don't believe me, don't believe anybody. Look it up further, look it up further, look it up further. The more you look it up, the more you're gonna be like, holy mackerel. Like with Kamala Harris, her father was white, Indonesian. Her grandfather was really white. Her great-grandmother owned a slave plantation making sugar cane. So she was her family is from slave owners, not slaves. So now the big question is, all 3 of them come from a history. All 3 of them claim they're black. One of them is really black. You know, show the picture on the thing. This is Angela Davis for the camera. Okay? One of them is black. Two of them claim they're black. All of them demand reparations. Once has been proven, like with the Sonny Hostin, you're on the your family comes from a family of slave owners, and they're Spaniards, not Puerto Rican. And with Kamala Harris, your family is white, and your family was slave owners. When they're presented that with that information, so what do you feel about reparations? What do they think they said? We don't care. We still want our reparations, and we still demand reparations for the black people for slavery. Why would they say that? If now they know they're not slave, there's no history of slavery in their family. They know that don't come from history of slave, and we know now that they're also come from a history of being slave owners instead of slaves. Why would they still demand reparations? They're triangle people and piss off people to keep everyone fighting and arguing with each other to distract them from something else that they're doing, which is stealing our money and everything, making laws that are stealing our money. Does that make sense? They don't care what the argument is. They just want people to argue. Does that make sense? Okay, are you with me so far? Okay, this is all going to make sense the more we go here. Now, we'll get into this now too. Let's just do this. Where did, in order to find out, remember, like if we're doing one of our puzzles, one of our games, like detective games. Okay, now we've discovered there's something funny going on with the triangle people, the evil people, and trying to keep us fighting. So let's go back another step. So where did slavery come from? If we're going to figure out who's entitled to reparations or what's reparations going on, we should probably go back and figure out where slavery came from. Have you ever heard the expression 1619 Project when they talk about reparations or slavery? The black people say, we got to, this was another thing they'll teach a lot in colleges and in schools. 1619, 1619, 1619. We deserve reparations. We want our repay back for 1619. What's 1619? Never heard that before? Okay. Alex? Any idea? Yes. Okay. They're saying because 1619 is when the United States or the colonies, because it wasn't the United States back then, 1619, they will say, is the date the very first slave ship came over from Africa, bringing African slaves to Virginia. It came on a ship called the White Lion. It landed in Virginia. And it was the very first slave ship that came from Africa to the colonies. So that's when they said slavery started in the United States. Is that true? Not really. Not really. That's the first date that black people from Africa came to Virginia, to the colonies, 1619. So they're saying that's the start of slavery. We want reparations based on that. That's why you'll see them. Reparations, 1619, reparations, 1619, reparations, 1619. Because they're giving you that part of history. So now let's take it back as detectives, okay? Did this ship decide one day, hey, it's 1619. We need slaves to to pick the cotton, to grow the tobacco, to make the sugar. Let's just go to Africa and kidnap people. And that's what they did? Very smart. The Africans probably volunteered. Because if this ship, just think about it logically like in our puzzle game. Yeah. Yeah, if this ship went over there, and just said, hey, we're going to start kidnapping people, what would the Africans have done? They would have killed them. They would have wiped them out. Millions of Africans, a ship full of colonists, they would say, you're not kidnapping nothing, we're going to kill you. They would have wiped them out and killed them. So something else must be going on. This is the piece that they leave out. When did slavery start? This is the big piece that they leave out. When did slavery start? That's a hard question. Slavery was in Egypt, in Greece during the wars, when all empires were around. When there was the Egyptian Empire, there were slaves. When there was the Greece Empire, there were slaves. When there was the Roman Empire, there were slaves. When there was the Babylonian Empire, 5,000 years ago, there were slaves. Right? How'd you become a slave back then? You became a slave, like if you're watching movies. If the Romans went into Germania or a country, and the other country refused to give up and submit, they would go there first and say, give up, give us your country, give up, bow down to the rule of Rome. If the country bowed down, they would not enslave them. They would say, okay, now you're with us, but you will have to fight in the army with us when we take over another country. But when the country rebelled and says, we're not going to give up, you're going to have to defeat us, what ended up happening? Like, for example, Rome would defeat Germania or whatever country they were going to. They would kill everybody they could. Anybody that they didn't kill was now subject to becoming a slave for Rome. They would take all the pretty girls. They would take all the children. They would take all the fighting men. They would take all the strong men that could work in the salt mines and building castles. So you were a captured prisoner, you became a slave. That happened through all of history, Egypt, everything. What also happened? Remember we read the book, Richest Man in Babylon, right? Remember in that book, what happened if you owed somebody money? What if you didn't have, if you owed somebody money, of course you'd have to pay them back. What if you did not have the money to pay them back? Did you just file bankruptcy like you do today? No, you couldn't file bankruptcy. So what ended up happening if you couldn't pay them back? As what?
As collateral.
You would have to work for them, but not in a job like in a suit and tie. If you owed somebody money, okay, say for example, there was in The Richest Man in Babylon, there was a few stories where a guy, one of the members of the family, would go to the gaming room, they called it, which is like the casino today, and they would gamble and lose a lot of money. And the guy could not pay back what he lost in the casino or the gaming room, as they called it back then. What ended up happening then is he owed the guy money. He would then have to forfeit his life to become that person's slave, to work as a slave for that person until that person said he paid him back. So you would have to take a clay tablet, chisel in there that so-and-so is now, I own him, he is my slave, he owes me this much money, and until he pays me back, this piece of clay tablet is now my ownership of that slave. Now, what if that person in the family, what if that person who lost money, there was a story in Richest Man in Babylon that a guy was in the gaming room. It was the oldest son of the family. Again, like we're studying the Bible. What's the oldest son in the oldest son in the family? Huh? Heir to the family, therefore the most important part of the family. So the most important part of the family could not become a slave if there were other people down the line. So like in The Richest Man in Babylon, if there was a story in there where the main son, the heir to the family, killed somebody in a drunken brawl in a bar or in a whatever they called it back then, killed somebody, the family of the son who died demanded reparations. This guy could not be the slave, so what did he have to do? Yeah. Remember that story now? He had to sign over a family member. In that case, it was his brother. He had to sign over his brother to the family of the lost child, say, since I killed your kid, you can now take my kid, and he will chisel into the clay tablet. He is now your slave. This is how much money he owes you, whatever the money that you say your value of your son was. And until he pays that back, if he ever pays it back, he is now your slave. So family members were traded as slaves, and they became slaves. So that's been around forever. So back then, if you owed somebody money, you have to give them something: your cattle, house, farm, crops, something. If you didn't have anything, you had to become a slave or give them a slave. If you lost in war, you became a slave. Unfortunately, back then too, they would still kidnap people. If you were kidnapped and stolen, you became a slave until somehow you can get your freedom. So that's how slavery began back then. Okay? Now, but that's old slavery. Slavery has been around since people have been around. Does that make sense? So United States didn't invent slavery, but the people, the triangle people will tell the black people that the United States invented slavery and caused it, and that's why they're entitled to reparations. But it's obvious that that the United States did not invent slavery, correct? So using our detective skills again to our critical thinking, where did now we know also where old slavery came from. If you owed people money, if you lost in war, there were many other things too. If you committed a crime, for example, here, I'm watching a movie now called Ben-Hur, right? There's a movie Ben-Hur. What if you were a rich person and you did something horrible? What if you were a rich person and you committed treason? Or just say, what if you were a person of prominence and you did something bad? And your sentence was death. We sentence you to die. And the person would beg, please, please, please don't kill me. Give me anything, do anything. I'll do anything. Give me anything, but don't kill me. And then the judge would say to them, okay, we will give you a choice. You can either die right now for your crimes, or you can become a slave to that person or that country. And you'll have to work hard labor or something. What do you think the person chose? Some did chose death. Some wouldn't want to do that, but back then, a lot of them chose slavery. Why do you think they would choose slavery? Let's put it this way. If you accidentally, or if you killed somebody and you went to court today and the judge said to you, I'm going to give you a choice. Do you want to go to prison for life, or do you want to die right now? What would you choose? Yeah, you'd probably want to go to prison for life. Why?
Then you still have your life.
You still have your life, and what else do you have? Think. Do some people who are in prison for life get out? Is there a chance you can get out? Yeah. There are a lot of people during the pandemic, a lot of prisoners who were sentenced to life in prison were just freed. Why did they free them? Because they said the prisons were so congested with people that COVID was spreading through the prison like wildfire, and they were safer on the outside. It was an absolute lie, but they freed thousands of people who were sentenced to life in prison. My point is, if you were given the choice of death right now, I stab you in the gut right now and you die right now for your crimes, or I cut your head off right now, or you become a slave for life, what are you going to choose? Slave for life. Why?
Because there is a small, slim chance that you could be.
Exactly, because there is a small, slim chance that somehow you'll be given the chance to escape. Someone will see you hard work and free you. There's a small chance something will happen that will give you back your freedom. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, forgot where I was going with that, but Oh, we're going to talk about where slavery came from. Okay. So now we're going to talk about where. Now that's talking about, again, about historical slavery. It's always been around. It's always been around. Okay. So again, I know we're going to talk about here one more thing. So again, we said, should reparations be based on simply the color of your skin? Right? Black, white. So now this is the argument. Black people, because of the color of their skin, should get reparations. White people, because of the color of their skin, should pay reparations. That's the argument of the triangle people. Again, to cause division in the world, to cause one group to fight with the other. Again, we said a minute ago, we have nothing to do with this. We're Filipino and we're Palestinian. The Filipino side of us were slaves to Spain for hundreds of years, way back when, until they won their freedom through war, the Filipinos. They had to go to war, they had to kill Magellan and the Spaniards and fight back for their freedom. The Palestinian side of us, Palestine, was Judea way back when. And in our family history, we were in Israel, which was called Palestine back then. And before that, it was called Judea. Our family was Christians there, right? And when the Muslims became a power, they started to go spread through all the Arab countries, killing all the Christians and enslaving the ones they could. In our family history on the Palestinian side, our grandparents had to run away from the Muslims to avoid slavery by hiding in the caves in the mountains of the Middle East, in Jordan and in what's called Judea. So they had to hide from the slavery. So a lot of our family was captured and enslaved by the Muslims, but our direct line escaped them. So because our family was slaves, are we entitled to reparations? Are we looking for reparations? No, we just want to be free and we just want to be left alone, right? Leave us alone, let us work. We'll work, we'll make our own money. We don't need reparations for the great-grandparents. But according to their word, because we are from a history of slaves, we are entitled to it. But because of our skin, we're not. Okay? Make sense so far? Okay. So now, where did modern day slavery come from? You don't know. Modern day slavery in the colonies and in the Western world started in the year 1400. Remember? 1619? That's when school says it started. 1619, remember that year? Slavery actually started around the year 1400, 200 years before. And where was slavery started, the modern day slavery? Take a wild guess. Huh? No, slavery in modern day America started in 1619 in the colonies. But slavery that began started in 1400. It wasn't in the colonies. It wasn't brought to the colonies in the black ones, but it was started in 1400. Where do you think it started, honey? Africa. Exactly. It started in Africa. Not with blacks. Started in Africa, I shouldn't say not with blacks. Who lives in Africa? Africans. Africans, blacks, and Muslim. So modern day slavery started in Africa, in northern Africa, from this is one word you want to have to look up if you don't believe anything like this. It's called the Barbary Coast of Africa. The Barbary Coast of Africa. It's northern Africa. It started in Barbary Coast, northern Africa, with the countries of Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. Libya, we'll talk about Libya. This is why I'm saying it's all going to piece together. Libya, we'll talk about in another couple days in more depth of slavery. But it started in Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya with blacks, Africans, and Muslims. The black people were actually the first slave owners, or the first slavers. And where did they get the slaves from? Take a guess. Huh? Europe? That what you said? Yeah, exactly. They would go to Ireland, England, Germany, Greece, Italy, on raiding trips to small towns that were defenseless. They would go there, they would kidnap men, women, and children, white men, women, and children, and enslave them. And they would take them and they would sell them to other Muslims back in Africa as slaves, as for their brothels, as concubines. They would steal the children. The men would be forced to work as slaves, or a lot of the Muslims would take white men as slaves and force them to join their Muslim army or die. Does that make sense? So those were the first slaves. They were white people kidnapped from the blacks and the Muslims in Africa and forced into slavery. Again, from Ireland, from Greece, from Italy, from European countries. They were called the Barbary pirates, Barbary Coast pirates, slaves. They would intercept ships on the high seas, kidnapping everybody, as pirates do. They would raid small towns and kidnap people and enslave them. So those were the first slaves. Then they started to bring white slaves to the United States, to the colonies. In the 1500s. In the 1500s, they started to bring, I got the exact year, 1500s. So in the 1500s, they would bring white slaves to the United States, Europeans, Irish people, Italians, Greece. They would sell them as slaves to work in factories, as hookers, as brothel concubines. They would sell the children, but they sold them as slaves back then. Okay? Then in the southern colonies, when they discovered cotton and tobacco and those kind of crops, they found out that it was the colonies found out that it was very hard to grow these crops, that it was hard to employ people to grow the crops because employees cost money and the work was very hard. So in order to save money, they started to employ slaves. So a lot of these people, like say for example, a lot of Irish were slaves. What would be the problem of an Irish person working on a cotton plantation or a tobacco plantation? What do you think ended up happening? Use your detective skills. What happens when you stay out in the sun too long by the pool without any sunscreen? There's no sunscreen back then. You get sunburned. What if you were an Irish slave working a tobacco field for 10 hours a day in the hot southern Virginia sun? What do you think would end up happening? Not only sunburn, massive sunburn, sunstroke. You ever have sunstroke? Sunstroke, if you're out in the sun, at the hot sun for 4 or 5 hours, your sun gets beat red like a lobster. It hurts to touch it. You get massively sick. You throw up, you get a fever, you get dizzy, you can't stand up. And that's just from 4 or 5 hours. How are you supposed to do that for 10 hours, 12 hours a day for a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year? What do you think ended up happening with them? They couldn't do it. So the slave owners discovered a problem with the Irish and the Italian people, and they demanded a better product. Does that make sense? What would be a better product? Don't think of people, think of like on the terms of a business owner, an evil triangle business owner. If you got a person who can't handle the sun, what would be a better product?
Or an older
You can't grow tobacco in the shade, but
or an older relative.
no. You want a product that can handle the sun, right? If an Irish person's skin can't handle, because if they don't have enough melanin in their body to handle the harsh sun, the better product would be someone who can handle the sun and stay out in the sun longer. Black people. Now, we're not, you guys get this out of your head right now, real fast. We're not talking about this on a racist level, where we're being racist or not racist. We're talking it based on what would an evil business owner think? Remember, business owner doesn't give a crap what color their skin is. They want free labor. I don't give a crap what skin color he is. I want to pay for money for him, do the work. I want to beat him. I want to force him to work, and I want the tobacco so I can make some money. That's what they're thinking. They don't give a crap what color their skin is. They want a better product. Give me a product that can handle the sun. Oh, the African said, hey, we don't have to go to Europe. We don't have to go to Ireland anymore and risk getting caught by the army. We don't got to go to Italy anymore. We don't got to Greece anymore. All we got to go now is down to Southern Africa and raid the tribes in our own land and kidnap other black people, and we'll sell them to the colonies because they can stay out in the sun a lot longer because of their dark skin. It's as simple as that. This is important to know. That back then, okay. Do you think the slaves were handed out for free to people? They had to buy them, right? Irish, when the African, blacks, and Muslim slave owners would kidnap Irish people or white people, they would sell them as slaves to the colonies for $5 each. Why $5? Because they were limited in the amount of work they could do because of the color of their skin, because they couldn't work out in the fields because they would get sick and die. So they had to either work indoors or on different jobs, right? The blacks that the black people and Muslim slave owners kidnapped were sold to the colonies for $100 each. Those are the numbers too. It was roughly those numbers. I'm not making those numbers up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This was sold for a lot more money because it was a more valuable product to work the cotton and the tobacco fields. So now what do you think the blacks, the Muslim slave owners, and the ones who were kidnapping the people, think they want to risk going back to Europe, to Italy, to Ireland, to Greece to capture people? Why? For $5 a person? We want the $100 per person. Think, not speaking as racist, speaking as an evil business owner. If you're an evil business owner, you want to make the most money possible and easier. It's easier to kidnap Africans in your own country than to go to a foreign country and capture them. There's less risk of getting hurt, killed, destroyed, and they're plentiful. They're everywhere in your own country. So that's what started the black trade, the black slave trade. Africans, blacks, and Muslims from North Africa kidnapping other blacks and selling them to the colonies for $100 each. So what does that have to do with us white people paying for reparations? Does that make sense? So when you detectivize it, it doesn't make any sense at all. And remember the studies of the Civil War? Did all the states have slavery? No, just the southern ones, the ones with the tobacco and the cotton and the sugar and the fields. The northern colonies had nothing to do with slavery. The northern colonies might have some Irish slaves or some as housekeepers, the women cook housekeeping for them and cooking for them. They called them indentured servants. Indentured servants is another word for a slave. You're an indentured servant. You have to serve me until your contract expires, which almost never does. Does that make sense? They were calling them, they were still slaves. But the northern colonies, they would have a few slaves, perhaps, but they worked usually cooking in the kitchen, serving waitresses in their rich homes. But the southern states are the ones that invested in the black slaves because they needed workers that could sustain the hot sun and work in the fields all day long. Does that make sense? We're going to watch a video in a second that tells exactly what I just said. But slavery started in 1400s from Africans, blacks, from blacks, Africans, and Muslims in northern Africa, kidnapping their own people and selling them around the world because they were valuable to work in the fields. And then the more plantations developed in the colonies, the higher the demand. Remember we talked about economics last year, I think? Supply and demand. When the demand for tobacco and cotton went up, what happened? What did they need more of? More black slaves. So as the rich triangle evil people made more and more money, the demand for more product went up. So they told these guys, we need more product, and they ended up kidnapping more of their own people to sell to the colonies. Does that make sense? Now we're going to watch a video now, but just right now, off of this alone, does reparations make sense now? Absolutely not, right? Doesn't make sense at all. You want reparations, go back to Africa and find the ones who started it and make them pay for it. Or go to Virginia and find the rich farmers who had the demand for more. But don't ask from everybody because of the color of our skin. We're from a history of slaves, not slave owners. A lot of black people come from a family history of slave owners and not slaves. It should have nothing to do with your skin. It should have to do with what you did. Here's another example. Just before we watch the movie. I need to write this down. We have been now in business in Las Vegas here for about 14 years, right? The reason we had to stop our business is because we're constantly getting burglarized, right? A lot of the burglars who robbed us were blacks. Some were white, some were blacks. They robbed us. They stole from us. They sold our products. We got nothing in return for it. We got damage to our business 14 times, damage to our business and stuff stolen and lost a lot of money to the point we had to close our business. Now, if you take us and the black people that robbed us, who's entitled to reparations? Them because they're black? Did they lose anything? They stole from us. There's something in the law that's called restitution. Restitution is just like reparations. In crime, when you commit a crime, exactly, you're supposed to pay restitution back to the people you stole from. But unfortunately, we live in a society with triangle people, triangle courts, triangle police, triangle detectives, triangle lawyers. Were we ever paid back restitution, reparations? No. Never, never, not a penny. The black people, the white people who stole from us were allowed to keep the stuff they stole from us. They were allowed to sell it, and none of them ever, ever, ever went to jail for it, even when they were caught. Is that fair? That's why the triangle people keep saying restitution for this, pay to this. Because they know we're going to get madder because we don't owe them nothing, and they're going to get madder because they want more and more stuff. Does that make sense? Okay, now we're going to watch a video, and then after the video, we're going to talk about where this all came from in the United States. Any questions so far? Okay. I did this. Okay, all right, so let's watch this video. You guys with me so far, though? Yeah. Now, again, I'm not teaching you this to be racist. I'm teaching you this because you need to know the truth. Wait, camera's still on. Again, I'm not teaching you to be racist. I'm teaching you this because you need to know the truth. Because if you watch these videos of Charlie Kirk again, or if anybody going to campuses and telling you about restitution, what you did, restitution. White people, black people, if they're on colleges, the black people say, yeah, I want restitution. I want lots of money. I want $300,000. I want free houses, free cars, free everything. And the white people, even the white kids on college, say, what do you think about restitution? Them being taught blacks need to get everything, whites have to pay everything. They'll say, yeah, the blacks should be given restitution. But what do you think what happens when they say to the person, okay, restitution? There's a black guy right next to you, give him $100. What do you think the white person says right then in college? Huh? Something like that. No. Why? Yeah, exactly. Whoa, $100. He's black. He's standing right next to you. This guy's black. You're white. Give him his restitution. Give him $100. Give him $20. What do you think they say? I don't have any money. Who's supposed to pay the restitution? The other people. Let the other people. What other people? Right? The rich people. So you want all the rich people to pay the restitution, but they want all the white people. All white people should pay. But when you interview people on college, are they entitled to restitution? Yes. $20. No, not me. The other guys, not me, the other guys. So when you put metal to the fire, as they say, when you put up or shut up, all their ideas evaporate. You know, why does that happen? Because now their ideas does not make sense. Why do I have to pay $20 to this guy? Because you agreed in reparations. Whoa. Now all of a sudden they don't understand the concept of reparations anymore. You get it? They're looking at it on a distorted, small cube of stay in the box thinking. The teacher told me black people are all slaves and they're all due reparations. The teacher told me, so that's what I believe. But as soon as they're presented with some facts, they realize that doesn't make sense anymore. I don't get it. Why do I have to pay? Because you agreed in reparations, you idiot. Make sense? So that's why I want you guys to learn this stuff, because I want you guys to think like a detective. Wait a minute, why do I have to pay? I was never a slave owner. Matter of fact, when I study my history of my family, we were actually slaves on both sides of the family. Let me give you another tip, another thing. Do you know Grandma? You know Grandma? When she was 3 years old, was in a concentration camp, a prison camp of the Nazis in Yugoslavia. Did you know that? She was the youngest one in the family. She was 3. Her brother was in there. Her sister was in there. Her mother was in there. And her grandmother was in there in a prison camp, in a Nazi prison camp in Yugoslavia during World War II. They were fed rotten meat filled with maggots while the rich Nazi soldiers ate good meat, laughing at them, beating them all day long, treating them as slaves. Grandma's white. She's German. When the Nazis went across Europe, They went through all the houses, kicked everybody out of the houses. They took grandpa from my grandfather, your great grandfather, from the family. They took all the men, said, you're now in the German army. You're a Nazi German army now. They took them all out of the house, kidnapped them all. Everyone's screaming and crying. You're now in the army. Put him in the truck. He's in the army. While the rest of the family was sent to a prison camp, and they stole the house, everything in there, the house and everything in there, all their clothes, everything. They were put to prison camp. Does grandma owe black people anything? Does grandma have to pay reparations to the Nazis? See what I'm saying? When you study your history, none of that makes sense. All the members, all the branches of our family chain go back to the families of slaves. Never in the history of our family owning slaves. But being slaves, yes. See what I'm saying? Okay. So, any questions so far? I don't want to get too much off track, but you need to know the facts. So when someone says to you, do you think blacks are entitled to reparations? You can go, absolutely not. Kiss my ass. Why? And you can say to them, who started the black slave trade? Blacks. Was I ever a slave owner? No. Were you ever a slave? No. Slavery was ended after the Civil War in the 1800s, right? Supposedly. Good point, Alex. Very good point. Supposedly. But the slavery that they're talking about, 1619 black and white reparations, did end in the Civil War. Modern day slavery is still going on. We'll talk about that later. But the slavery they're talking about ended in the 1800s with the Civil War. And the white people in the North fought to give the black people their rights. We owe reparations. Shit, you don't owe them nothing. Actually, and you don't hear today, grandma saying, where's my reparations from the Nazis? You don't hear grandpa saying, where's my reparations from the Muslims? You don't say, mom saying, where's my reparations from the Spaniards? You don't see the Irish people saying, where's our reparations from being the first slaves in the United States? You know who else was slaves in the United States? The Chinese. Chinese were brought to the United States to build the railroads because China was extremely dirt poor. So they said, you guys want to eat food? Come to the United States. We'll feed you at least. You have to work your ass off on the railroads. But they were also slaves. The Chinese had to come over here and slave. Did they want their reparations? No. They established their own communities in Chinatown and every city in the country. They were slaves. They were abused. They were misused. They don't want reparations. They just want to be left alone like everybody else. The only one that's demanding reparations is the black people. Why? Take a guess at why black people want reparations. Not only because of this. I'll make it easy for you. Because it's an obvious visual sign, black and white. They are visually different. The triangle people tried to pit Chinese against Irish, Irish against Europeans, Irish against white people, Chinese against white people. They tried this all throughout history, but it never took. Because people got along with the Irish, they got along with the Chinese because they had similar characteristics. They liked the similar foods, they had similar skin. So the fight between one party and the other never really took. The obvious one that took was black versus white because it was obvious. You look different than us. That one was an obvious, and that's the only one that took. Now, about the movie. You saw in the movie how, in the movie, the Barbary Coast, the Barbary pirates, the black and Muslim pirates of North Africa were kidnapping people from all over the world, from Europe, even from the colonies, and from Europe in Africa, and selling them in the slave trade in North Africa. Millions of white people in Europe were kidnapped over the hundreds of years, it was 250 years of the slave trade of the Europeans were kidnapped and sold into slavery. The countries that were involved were North Africa, were Libya, Morocco, Algeria, Tripoli, Tunisia, North African. Many of them were the Muslims. They were all black and Muslims selling mostly Christian people as slaves until they discovered they needed a better product to work on the plantations because of the demand from the southern plantations for a product that can handle the sun. Then they started kidnapping more African, darker people that can handle the sun. And the people, you saw in the video too, where were the slaves sold? They were sold in markets in Libya, in Tunisia, and Morocco. So in order to buy the slaves, slave masters would have to go to the slave market over there and buy them, put them on the boats, and bring them across. So when that first ship came over in 1619, it wasn't the white Virginia farmers going over there and kidnapping black people. The white Virginia farmers went to the slave market, the black and Muslim slave market in North Africa, and bought them there, put them on the boat, and brought them across. Who did they buy the slaves from, 1619? From blacks and Muslim slave masters, slave kidnappers, okay? Important to note too that Muslims, we're gonna discuss the laws of the Sharia laws and Muslim laws in another topic. I have that prepared too. It's important to know that Muslims still believe in slavery today, 100%. They believe they have the right as Muslims to enslave anybody they want to that is not Muslim. So the slave trade still exists today in Africa, in Libya, in those countries, because Muslims still believe they're entitled to enslave anybody they want as long as they're not Muslim. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, are you with me? Some topics are hard to talk about. Some topics start fights. These are the topics that are hard to talk about. These topics start fights. So they're hard to talk about sometimes, but if you never talk about it, you never clear the ear. There are a lot of black people that are very smart today. You'll see them on TikTok and on YouTube and on Rumble. This is where I got a lot of the information from. A lot of educated black people will say, they'll tell you exactly what I'm telling you right now. They'll tell you, when did slavery start? We started. The black people, we started it. Not the white people, we started it. We brought it to them. We sold it to them. You know what I mean? Okay. Where's my track? How did, not the slavery, but the argument of reparations start? We're talking about reparations, remember? So where did the idea of reparations come from? Angie, with me? Okay. Remember, reparations is an idea started by the triangle people, the evil people in the world, to divide the world into two classes, whites and blacks, so that we're always fighting each other, so we're distracted from reality. Where did the idea come from? Reparations, the idea began after the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963. 1963, we had a president, John F. Kennedy, JFK, who was going to change the world. He was a Democrat. He was going to change the world. He was talking about all the corruptions in the world, talking about the corrupt CIA, talking about the corruption of the Israeli Mossad, talking about the corruption of the banking system, the corruption of the triangle people, the corruption of the government. He was talking about all. He was trying to correct and fix the whole world. So what happened to him? On live TV, they blew his head off and killed him. The whole world mourned because now the world would not be changed for the better. The world would fall into chaos. Who was his vice president? LBJ. What's that stand for? You guys know what that is? Lyndon B. Johnson. Very good, Alex. Lyndon B. Johnson was the vice president at the time, became president. He was a piece of crap. What he did was start everything that led to where we're at today. And I'll explain to you how he did in a minute. He was excited when John F. Kennedy died because he was involved in the killing. We'll get into that in another topic, another day. But he was involved in the killing. He was he was sworn into office on the plane as president while he was smiling and laughing. When John F. Kennedy was killed, he was involved. The CIA was involved. Israeli Mossad was involved. George Bush Sr. was involved. They needed to shut him up because he was exposing the Triangle People's world of evil. Anyways, they had to get rid of him. They killed him. LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, became president. And he started right away what was known as, there were several acts and laws, and they were known as the Fair Society Acts and Laws. That sounds like a really nice word, right? Fair society. Same thing like the world. Like when we talk about Marxism and Karl Marx, what was that called? Economic, social, what was it called? Social economic equality. Karl Marx talked about social and economic equality. Sounds beautiful, right? We should all be equal. We should all be fair. He started an idea of fair society. And in the act was a lot of acts that favored black people over everybody else, which you would think sounds okay. But at this time in the world, it's important to know that in the 1960s, black people were families just like us. They had a mom, a dad, and kids. The dad went to work in the factories along with the white workers. They got their paychecks. They went back to their families. They fed their families, put their kids in school, and they had families together. This piece of crap said, I need to stop that. We need to get to a level one day where we can do this, black against whites. So what did they do? They needed to do something to split up the black family and to make them hate. So they established a bunch of laws and plans that would build over the next few years that would start a society of fighting. So what they did, and Lyndon B. Johnson was even known for quoting, "My Fair Society plan will have the blacks enslaved and voting for us for the next 200 years. Because of this Fair Society plan, it set up an unfairness where they would basically pay them not to do anything. So what ended up happening is it split up families. The women would make more money separated from the husband than if the husband was working. You'll see a lot of people today on Facebook that the mother doesn't work and her income is based on how many children she has, because they're collecting food stamps, welfare, housing costs based on how many kids they have. I'll give you an example here. This is just a hard one. I have a friend when I went to college. He's not black, he's white. But because they're hooked onto the welfare system, see, some white people take advantage of it too if they're able to. My friend lived in a town in Illinois called Rock Falls. He went to their house, and in the neighborhood, they had, you ever see those on TV, the neighborhood where that's the rich guy, that's where the rich guy lives, in a big piece of land with a giant castle-looking house? That was my friend. Big piece of land in this town with lots of small houses, lots of small business, like a country town. You come up to their house, big piece of land, long driveway, giant house, look like a castle. Go there, and you go and my friend had like 12 brothers and sisters, lots of people in the house. They were the sweetest family ever, but Me and my friend Rafael, the Filipino guy, we were best friends, all of us. But we went to his house one time and we looked, wow, your house is big and huge. What does your dad do for a living? Nothing. What's your mom do for a living? Nothing. How do you got this huge house? Oh, we're on welfare. Like, what? This is the first time I ever, being a college student. What's welfare? I don't get what's that. Because I had to pay for my own college to go to school. So what's welfare? There's 12 kids in the family. Each one gets money from welfare. My friend told me, there's 12 of us. My dad makes $140,000 a year on welfare alone. Like, what? Yeah, we get all of our food stamps. We get all of our food for free. We get all of our rent paid for free. We get free this, free that, free health, free insurance. And my dad makes $140,000 a year cash from welfare. What? And he never goes to work. What? It's based on how many kids you have. Is that fair? And that's, mind you, that's in the middle 1980s. The 1980s, that's 40 years ago. $140,000 back then. He probably makes $500,000 a year now on welfare. If in the same situation. Because that was 40 years ago. With the cost of inflation and everything, you'd probably be $500,000 and never having to go to work ever again in your life. That's this fair society. So what ends up happening, like we talked about before, if you're black and you are given all of this stuff for free, everything, free phone, free electricity, free food, free insurance, free school, free college, free everything, and everything is for free, and the other people have to pay for everything, again, you're pitting one group against another. You're making a society a fair? Question mark? You're making a society a very unfair. The more free stuff they get, the more angry they're going to get, because the more free stuff they want, and the more free stuff they get, the more unfair it's going to seem, and the more white people are going to say, that's unfair. So you're going to get this argument like, holy crap. So the worse this gets, the more each side ends up hating each other. And that's where we're at in society right now. And this jackass knew that was going to happen. And what's going on now? It is in order to get the free stuff, they have to keep voting for the Democrat Party. That was his trick. I'm going to get them voting for us for the next 200 years. And we're going to stay in power for the next 200 years. Keep giving them free stuff, keep increasing the free stuff, and they'll keep voting for us. And then in the end, they're hurt and we're hurt. Everybody's hurt. Everyone's fighting each other. They're allowed to rob, steal, beat up people, commit murder, rape, hurt people, while getting everything for free. We're getting hurt for it, and it's pitting one side against the other. We want our reparations. We want more. We want your house. We want all your money. We want you $350,000. We want more. Like, we don't have it to give. And what's going on now? Do they really want the reparations, the Triangle people? They just want the war. As long as they can keep them convincing that they're owed reparations, the battle still rages. All they got to do is keep saying reparations. That's why in the beginning, Sonny Hostin, Angela Davis, Kamala Harris, keep throwing more logs, more coal in the fire. Reparations. But you're not black. You were slave owners. I don't care. Reparations. More fighting. Distract them from us, the Triangle people, stealing all the money and enslaving everybody. Who is paying all this free stuff they're getting? The white people that are working. Does that make sense? The white people that are working, paying taxes, are paying for all the freebies. So if all the people who are working have to pay for all the free stuff, are they not slaves? Because they're having to work their ass off to barely live. Are they not slaves? Right? Are the black people slaves to the Democrat Party? Keep doing what we tell you. You want the free stuff? Right? You want the free stuff? Keep doing what we tell you to do. And we'll give you the free stuff. Are they still slaves? They're still slaves. Right? Everybody in this system who is not one of the triangle people is a slave. That's the problem. It's not really blacks against whites. They're making it look like against blacks against whites because they want us to fight and be distracted. Distracted from what? From the fact that we are all slaves. We have to do what we are told, pay the reparations, pay the taxes, pay your bills, vote for who we tell you to, and remain a slave.